My fiance's prenup would have handed her all my wealth, so I launched a lawsuit demanding $50K that she'll lose. Beamy, 29-year-old guy. Always thought these posts were written by dramatic losers who needed therapy instead of anonymous boards. Yet here I am typing this out. Funny how life works. Been carrying this dumpster fire around for months. Might as well let strangers enjoy the show. So I was engaged to this girl I'll call Victoria. 28 female, engaged for almost a year. Together for 4 years total. Wedding was supposed to be in 4 months. Everything was set. Venue booked, caterer paid, photographer locked in. The whole 9 yards. Most of the cash for deposits came from my account. Like $28,500 worth. No big deal at the time. I was just excited to marry the woman I loved. For most of our relationship, we were that couple. Teammates through and through. We had this rhythm that just worked. We'd laugh at stupid inside jokes, debate about movies for hours, all that good stuff. She'd plan these elaborate date nights, and I'd surprise her with her favorite Thai food after rough days at work. It felt easy, like we had this whole love thing figured out. We met at a friend's birthday party. I was helping set up the sound system. She walked in with homemade brownies that looked professional as hell. She caught me staring and said, "Don't worry, I'll save you the biggest piece." I knew right then I was into her. We talked the entire night, and I got her number. The rest just flowed naturally. So like our first year was the typical rom-com, can't keep our hands to ourselves, blowing up each other's phones every 5 minutes. The whole lovey-dovey crap. But here's the weird part. That cringy honeymoon phase just never stopped. Year 2 rolls around, still disgustingly into each other. Year 3, same deal. Eventually I'm like, screw it, and she moves her stuff into my place after year 2. Seemed like a no-brainer at the time. No crazy ex-drama, no psycho behavior. Just 2 idiots making breakfast together and arguing about what to watch on Netflix. Then about 8 months back, things got weird. Not like obvious red flag waving in your face weird. More like that feeling when you're home alone and think you heard something, but can't tell if it's a serial killer or just the AC making noise. Little stuff. Suddenly, Miss I Have Nothing to Hide slaps a password on her phone. These mysterious networking events start popping up that she couldn't explain if her life depended on it. And she developed this super convenient interest in my financial situation. How's your 401k doing, babe? Can I see those investment accounts? Since we're practically married. Meanwhile, I so much as glance at her credit card statements, showing 3 maxed out cards, and she'd flip her shit, like I'd asked to read her teenage diary. I made a joke one day saying, "What are you running some secret spy ring now?" She laughed it off and said, "No work's been emailing me a lot." But a couple days later, she set up that password. Caught me off guard, because she'd never used one before. It didn't stop there. She started stepping out of the room to take calls. Her phone would ring and she'd be like, "Oh, let me just grab this real quick," and disappear into the bedroom. If I asked who it was, she'd just say, "Just a friend from work." There was also this new habit of keeping her phone face down on the table. I didn't even realize it was a thing, until one day I reached over to hand her something, and she quickly moved her phone out of the way. I seriously thought I was losing my damn mind. Like, am I just being that pathetic, jealous boyfriend who needs therapy? But my gut kept screaming, "Something's off, dumbass," and wouldn't shut the hell up no matter how much I tried to ignore it. Then there was Patricia, Victoria's mom. Holy shit, this woman. Intense is putting it mildly. Think helicopter parent meets drill sergeant meets Disney villain. At first I chalked it up to normal mama bear BS. She'd grill me about my job, family history, childhood pets, probably my blood type and sperm count, if she could have gotten away with it. Victoria had warned me her parents were selective about who they let into their precious circle, but they seemed to tolerate me well enough. Robert, her dad, was the complete opposite. Quiet dude, who'd permanently glued himself to whatever game was on TV. Poor bastard had clearly learned years ago that contradicting Hurricane Patricia just wasn't worth the trouble. The man had the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd surrendered his balls to the lost and found box decades ago, and never bothered to check if they'd been claimed. But lately, Patricia upgraded to full-blown Category 5 nightmare. "Travis needs to add you to the house deed before the wedding," she'd tell Victoria right in front of me. During our forced Sunday dinner torture sessions, "It's just what responsible couples do." My freaking house. the one I saved for years to buy, the one I put a down payment on with my money, the one I owned free and clear before Princess Victoria was even in the picture. But sure, Patricia let me just hand over half my biggest asset. Because you think your precious daughter deserves a participation trophy for deigning to marry me. Makes perfect sense. She would corner me at family BBQs. How much does a marketing director at your company really make? Victoria says you're being modest. Or have you thought about a job at my friend's company? The benefits are much better. Meanwhile, Robert just sat there with his beer completely checked out. Typical. Things kept nagging me. Victoria didn't stop giving me those typical cheater signs. Her mom's comments. Things started stacking up in my mind. So after one of these ambushes, I decided to protect myself. Moved some savings to a separate account. Made copies of all my financial statements. Changed my investment passwords. I felt like a paranoid asshole doing it. But something just felt off. It wasn't like me to be so suspicious. But that voice in my head kept telling me I needed to be careful. Then out of nowhere, Victoria starts obsessing over this luxury soap business she wants to launch. Suddenly, she's an expert on organic ingredients and essential oils. She'd leave Pinterest boards open on her laptop with pictures of million-dollar soap empires. We just need about $45,000 for initial inventory and marketing, she'd say like it was nothing. Since when was this my financial responsibility? Don't get me wrong, I was always supportive of her career goals. When she switched from advertising to event planning 3 years in, I was her biggest cheerleader. When she wanted to take that expensive social media marketing course last year, I encouraged her to go for it. But this soap business came out of literally nowhere. And the way she talked about it wasn't, "This is my dream," but "This is our retirement plan." I don't know. Maybe I was reading too much into things. Maybe this is normal pre-wedding jitters. Maybe I'm being a dick for not supporting her dreams. I've never been the type to jump to conclusions or assume the worst. We'd been solid for 4 years. Ups and downs, sure, but nothing that made me think, oh, there's trouble here. But the pit in my stomach wouldn't go away. Then one night, she said she had a networking dinner with potential investors. Something about her outfit and the extra perfume she put on didn't feel like a business meeting to me. I sat there watching her get ready. This uneasy feeling washing over me. Which investor is this again? I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. Just someone from my network, she said vaguely, not making eye contact. He's got connections to some boutique retailers. Of course. Now I'm not proud of this, but I followed her. Not because I was trying to catch her in something, but because I needed to make sense of what was happening. I parked down the block from this upscale steakhouse downtown. Through the window, I could see her at a corner table, partially obscured by a decorative partition. I couldn't get a clear view of whoever she was meeting. Just glimpses of what looked like a man's profile. Dark hair, nice suit. What struck me was how Victoria's demeanor kept shifting. One minute she'd be sitting up straight nodding seriously, gesturing with her hands like she does during work presentations. Professional, focused, then she'd suddenly transform, leaning in closer, laughing a bit too enthusiastically, touching her necklace in that specific way she does when she's trying to make an impression. At one point, she reached across the table. I couldn't see what for. Could have been passing a document. Could have been something else entirely. Nothing definitively inappropriate happened. No kissing, no obvious hand-holding. Just moments that didn't quite fit the important investor meeting story. Small things most people wouldn't notice. But after 4 years together, I noticed. I drove home before they finished dinner. Part of me felt ridiculous for being suspicious. Maybe it really was just business. Maybe I was creating problems that weren't there. But that knot in my stomach wouldn't go away. Something wasn't adding up, but I still couldn't put my finger on exactly what. The next evening, Victoria showed up with this weird energy shift. Made my favorite dinner. Wore that black dress I always compliment her on, and kept touching my arm. Complete 180 from her recent distant behavior. "Babe, I've been thinking," she said, opening her laptop to show me some business slides. "We're going to be amazing business partners. You handle the finances, I'll be the face of the brand. Here we go again about you have to pay, but I had enough." "Since when are you into starting a business?" I asked. "Last month, you were all about that promotion." She barely missed a beat. "This is bigger than that job. With your investment skills and my marketing background, we could retire by 40. She leaned closer. I was thinking we'd set up a business account after the wedding. Maybe $55,000 to start, $55,000 for soap. Luxury soap, she corrected, smile tightening. It's an untapped market. Something felt calculated about the whole performance. The dinner, the dress, the sudden affection. The convenient business idea requiring my money. Why the sudden interest in soap? I asked. And why wait until after the wedding? Just seems like the right timing, she said quickly, changing the subject to some Netflix show she wanted to watch. I let it drop, but that night I barely slept. The whole conversation playing on repeat in my head. From Goldstein, Myers, and Associates Family Law. Subject, prenuptial agreement, Sterling Knight. I froze, not from Victoria, from her lawyer, a lawyer I didn't even know existed until this moment. I clicked it open, and as I scrolled through the attached document, my stomach twisted tighter with each paragraph. This wasn't just a prenup. This wasn't just protecting assets. This was calculated, strategic, predatory. It said that my premarital assets, house, retirement accounts, stay mine. Normal. Her premarital assets and $31,000 in credit card debt I later discovered stay hers. Also normal. But anything we earn during marriage becomes her separate property if we divorce. My income, investments, all of it. I waive all rights to spousal support no matter how long we're married. Side projects, anything I develop becomes hers. I'd be required to invest in her business ventures as part of my spousal obligations. And if her soap business needs funding, I'd have to provide it or be in breach of marital duty. I stared at my screen, rereading it multiple times. My stomach dropped. I'd never been the type to jump to conclusions or assume the worst. But this was undeniable. The business idea, the secret dinners, her mom's questions, they were setting me up as the funding source for her exit plan. Get married, drain my accounts for her soap line, then bail with half my assets and her new guy. I called my lawyer right away. He was silent for a full minute after reading it. This is the most predatory prenup I've ever seen, he finally said. Don't sign this garbage. He sent a professional hell no response that evening. Victoria texted, my parents want to have dinner tonight to discuss some wedding details. I almost didn't go. Part of me wanted to avoid the confrontation, to just text back saying I wasn't feeling well. But another part needed to see how deep this rabbit hole went. I wasn't about to let them steamroll me. So Patricia started before I even had food on my plate. Victoria mentioned you received the prenuptial document this morning. I nodded, waiting to see where this was going. My gut was in knots, but I kept my face neutral. I know these things can seem so formal, she continued with a tight smile, but every smart couple does this nowadays. It's like car insurance you don't expect to crash, but you're glad you have it. Robert grunted in agreement, not making eye contact. My sister and her husband did one, Victoria added, reaching for my hand across the table. It's totally standard. Standard? I finally spoke, pulling my hand away. Having all marital assets become your separate property is standard? Me funding your business as a marital obligation is standard. Patricia's smile tightened. Well, Travis Victoria will be making sacrifices for your marriage, too. Her career might take a back seat when you have children. This just ensures she's protected. This isn't protection. It's a financial hostage situation, I said, my voice calm despite the anger building inside me. That's when Patricia's mask finally slipped. Her smile vanished, replaced by a cold stare that made the room temperature drop 10 degrees. Let me be very clear, she said, leaning forward, with her nails digging into the tablecloth. If you don't sign this prenup, there will be no wedding period. Mom? Victoria started looking uncomfortable. No, he needs to hear this. Patricia cut her off, her voice sharp as a knife. We're not letting Victoria enter a marriage without protection. And if you walk away, don't expect to see a cent of what you've already spent on deposits. That's the price of cold feet. She sneered at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of her designer shoes. You think you're special? You think my daughter couldn't find someone else who'd be more cooperative? There are plenty of men who'd appreciate what Victoria brings to the table. I sat there stunned by how quickly the facade had dropped. All those Sunday dinners, all those times she'd treated me like family. It was all fake. 5 years of fake smiles and fake interest in my life, just waiting for the right moment to show her true colors. Victoria finally looked at me, but there was something different in her eyes. "You know, Travis," she said with an artificial sweetness that made my skin crawl, "this really isn't that big of a deal. I don't understand why you're being so difficult. It's just a piece of paper that protects both of us." "Both of us?" I asked. "How exactly does it protect me when it gives you everything and leaves me with nothing?" She rolled her eyes. "You're exaggerating. Besides, if you really loved me, you'd want me to feel secure. Unless—" Her voice trailed off. "There's something you're planning that makes you afraid of this prenup." The emotional manipulation was so blatant, it was almost laughable. She was trying to flip this around, make it seem like my reluctance was proof of bad intentions. Classic gaslighting. "Every man who truly loves his wife would sign this," Patricia added, her voice dripping with judgment. "Robert signed something similar, didn't you, honey?" Robert mumbled something nobody heard. His dead eyes told me everything I needed to know about what 30-plus years under Patricia's thumb looked like. "You're being dramatic," Victoria said, finally dropping the sweet act. "If you didn't have anything to hide, you wouldn't be so defensive. Unless all that talk about building a life together was just talk." I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I thought I knew was gone. Or maybe she was never there. I'd always prided myself on not jumping to conclusions, on giving people the benefit of the doubt. But some things you can't rationalize away, the way their masks slipped off. I was speechless. "You know what?" Patricia chimed in, not bothering to hide her disdain anymore. "I never thought you were good enough for her anyway. Your job is fine, I guess. But Victoria deserves someone with real ambition, someone who understands her value." Victoria didn't even bother defending me. She just nodded along with her mother's assessment, like they'd had this conversation many times before. "And that house of yours," Patricia continued, warming to her theme. "It's cute, but hardly the neighborhood Victoria should be raising children in. We always assumed you'd upgrade once you had access to our connections." "What do you mean, your connections?" I asked, finally finding my voice. "Don't act naive, Travis," Victoria snapped. "You know my family has opened doors for you. That promotion last year, Dad put in a word with his golf buddy. You're a new client mom's recommendation. You didn't think that all happened because of your skills, did you?" This was news to me, complete fiction. I'd earned every promotion, every client, through my own hard work. The fact that they had been creating this narrative behind my back, taking credit for my achievements, made my blood boil, so I got up without touching my food. "Where are you going?" Victoria demanded, like I was some disobedient child trying to leave the dinner table without permission. "None of your business," I replied. Patricia snapped, standing too. "Either you sign or the wedding's off. It's that simple. And Travis, if you walk away, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly why. How you got cold feet, how you couldn't commit. Your reputation won't survive it." I laughed genuinely. That seemed to catch both women off guard. "Threaten my reputation to who exactly?" Patricia's face flushed red. "I'm just stating facts, your choice." "No, let me state some facts," I said, voice steady. "That prenup is garbage, and your attempt to intimidate me is pathetic." She stared at me speechless. I glanced at Robert, who was suddenly fascinated by the tablecloth. "You're not used to people standing up to you, are you?" I grabbed my keys. "I'll be in touch about my decision. And Patricia, let me tell you, people who try to strong-arm others usually end up with exactly what they deserve." I walked out without looking back, ignoring Victoria calling my name. The drive home was a blur. My head was spinning with everything that had just happened. How had I not seen this coming? 4 years with someone, and you think you know them. Turns out I didn't know Victoria at all. I spent the next day going through old photos, text messages, emails, looking for signs I might have missed. Was she always like this, and I just didn't see it? Or did something change? I couldn't figure it out. 2 days later, I got a text from Victoria. "Your lawyer's response shows you don't trust me or believe in our future. Wedding's off." I stared at my phone, watching those 3 dots appear and disappear. As she presumably typed and deleted additional messages, I expected to feel heartbroken. 4 years down the drain and all that. But honestly, all I felt was a cold clarity washing over me. They'd shown their hand, realized I wouldn't fold, and were now taking their chips and leaving the table. This wasn't about love or trust. This was about money. My money. The $28,500 in non-refundable deposits I'd already paid. The house they wanted me to add her name to. the future income they planned to siphon through that business venture. My reply was simple. We need to talk about the deposits. She left me on red. Of course she did. The prenup scheme had failed, but they were still planning to walk away with my $28,500 in wedding payments. Like hell that was happening. I called my lawyer. The venue, photographer, caterer, band, $28,700, all non-refundable at this point, all from my account. I want it back. He sent a demand letter with all the receipts. Pay up in 15 days. Their response came 3 days later. Her lawyer offered $7,500 as a gesture of goodwill. My lawyer didn't even dignify that with a direct response, just restated our demand for the full amount. Then came the family pressure campaign. Her mom called my parents saying I broke Victoria's heart and was being greedy over a few dollars. Victoria's sister texted that I clearly never loved her if I was quibbling over money. The irony of them accusing me of caring too much about money was almost funny. 2 weeks later, the offer increased to $12,000. They're testing your resolve, my lawyer said. Stand firm. I did. This wasn't about the money anymore. It was about principle. They tried to screw me over with that prenupper, and now they were trying to keep half my deposits. Not happening. After another week of legal back and forth, they came back with $18,500. Final offer, her lawyer claimed. Still not enough, I told my lawyer. They need to return every penny. Are you sure? He asked. Litigation will cost more than the difference. I don't care, I said. They don't get to win, not even a little. Around that time, Victoria showed up at my house crying. This is all a misunderstanding, she said, her voice cracking. Mom just wanted to protect me. We can write a new prenup together. That's when I suddenly remembered the restaurant. Who's the guy from the restaurant, Victoria? Her face went white. What? The investor you had dinner with last week. That was just a business contact? I can't believe you followed me. That's psycho behavior. I didn't say anything. The transformation was terrifying. 1 second, she was the vulnerable, tearful fiancée I'd fallen for. And the next, she was this hostile stranger. Eyes narrowed, voice dripping with contempt. She started pacing around my living room, like she still owned the place. You know what's really funny, she said. My mom was right about you all along. She said you'd never be able to provide the lifestyle I deserve. Said you were too small time. That stung not because it was true, but because it revealed how she and her mother had been discussing me all this time, dissecting my worth based on my earning potential. And now you're suing me over wedding deposits, she laughed. But there was no humor in it. Do you have any idea who my family knows in this town? One call from my dad and your precious career is over. She genuinely believed she was entitled to keep the money I'd paid, entitled to my future earnings, entitled to a lifestyle funded by my hard work. And now she was threatening me. You should leave, I said quietly. You're making a huge mistake, she said, her voice now cold. You have no idea what you're throwing away. I think I do. No, you don't, she hissed. Because when I'm done, you'll be lucky if you can get a job flipping burgers in this town. My family doesn't take well to being disrespected, especially by someone who should be thanking us for even considering letting him into our world. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Last chance Travis dropped this stupid lawsuit, signed the prenup, and maybe I'll convince my mom to give you another shot. The sheer audacity left me speechless. She was still acting like she was doing me a favor by marrying me. Goodbye, Victoria. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. All I could think about was that the woman I loved had never existed. She was just a mask Victoria wore until she didn't need it anymore. The next few weeks were a roller coaster. When they missed our final deadline at $18,500, my lawyer filed suit in county court. The court date was set, deposition scheduled. He even mentioned we'd be requesting her phone records as evidence. They thought they could push me around, drain my accounts, and then walk away with no consequences. I wasn't going to let that happen. 3 days after getting served, her lawyer suddenly wanted to discuss settlement options. Funny how quickly their tone changed when they realized I wasn't backing down. The full $28,700 plus our $950 in legal expenses appeared in my account the next day. No further negotiation required. I couldn't believe it was actually over. After months of this bullshit, it ended with a simple bank transfer. I sat on my couch that night with a beer, feeling the strange mix of relief and emptiness. I'd won technically, but it still felt like I'd lost something important. My trust, my certainty about my own judgment, maybe even a bit of my optimism. But that's not even the best part of this whole mess. About a week after the settlement, I got a call from a mutual friend who had always been closer to Victoria than to me. She felt guilty about staying silent and wanted me to know what was really going on. The business contact turned out to be her boss's son, who hilariously dumped her ass when he realized she wasn't getting any of my money. Apparently, they'd been seeing each other for months, and he was the one who first suggested she should secure her future before making any moves. He was basically coaching her through the whole thing. My friend explained he told her to get as much as she could from you, and then they'd start their life together with a nice financial cushion. This wasn't just cheating. This was a calculated financial scheme with me as the target. My friend forwarded me some screenshots of conversations between her and Victoria from months ago. Reading them made my blood boil. "Travis is such a pushover, LOL," Victoria had written. "He actually believes I want to start a soap business." As if, her friend had replied with laughing emojis, then asked, "But what if he doesn't sign the prenup?" "Oh, he will," Victoria responded. "Mom's got it handled. He's so desperate to be part of a real family, he'll sign anything if we pressure him enough. And if not, whatever, I've already got my eye on an upgrade anyway." An upgrade. That's what I was to her. A stepping stone, something to be used and discarded when a better option came along. But the real cherry on top, when Robert, her dad, finally saw the prenup during the legal proceedings. He apparently lost his shit. According to mutual friends, he'd had no idea what Patricia and Victoria were planning. All those times he sat silently at the dinner table. He wasn't just checked out, he was completely in the dark. "You know what Robert told me?" another friend said. He said seeing that prenup was like looking in a mirror. He realized Patricia had been doing the same kind of manipulative shit to him for decades. Turns out Robert had signed something similar before their wedding. Believing it was just a formality, it had effectively transferred all his assets to Patricia over the years, leaving him financially dependent on her despite being the primary breadwinner. He'd been trapped, unable to leave because he'd have nothing to his name if he did. "The man was pale as a ghost when he saw what they tried to do to you," my friend continued. "He kept saying, 'They're doing it again. They're doing to him what she did to me.' But I wasn't a puppet. Like Robert, they messed with the wrong person." After 35 years of marriage, Robert filed for divorce last month. The last straw wasn't just Patricia's plotting with Victoria. It was learning that they'd been siphoning money from his retirement accounts into a separate fund only Patricia could access. A fund he didn't even know existed until the divorce proceedings began. You should have seen Patricia's face when her lawyer told her the divorce was happening, my friend said with a hint of satisfaction. She kept screaming that Robert couldn't leave her, that he had no right after all she'd done for him. When he didn't back down, she actually threatened to destroy his relationship with their kids if he went through with it. The woman's entitlement knew no bounds. In her mind, Robert existed solely to fund her lifestyle. The idea that he might assert his independence was incomprehensible to her. Word spread through their social circle like wildfire. Patricia tried to turn their social circle against Robert, spinning stories about him having a midlife crisis, claiming he was mentally unstable. But the prenup fiasco with me had already raised eyebrows, and people weren't buying it anymore. It was like watching dominoes fall. First the wedding, then Victoria's relationship with her boss's son, then her parents' marriage. All because they tried to screw me over with that prenup. I could have felt bad about it, I guess. But honestly, it felt like karma doing its thing. I hadn't wished for any of this to happen. I just refused to be their victim. The rest took care of itself. The friends' situation split exactly how you'd expect. Half swallowed Victoria's story about me being controlling and hiding assets, sending judgmental texts without bothering to hear my side. The other half quietly reached out with variations of always knew something was off with her. Funny how one prenup can sort your real friends from the fake ones better than any personality test. "I always got a weird vibe from her mom," one friend told me over lunch. "Remember that time at your birthday when she kept asking about your promotion? I thought it was just her being nosy, but now it makes sense. I'm not going to lie, the whole thing fucked me up for a while. I had this weird mix of feeling like an idiot for not seeing it sooner, but also feeling relieved that I caught it before the wedding. For the first month or so, I kept replaying conversations in my head, looking for clues I might have missed. It's hard not to question your own judgment after something like this. Did I ignore red flags? Was I naive? These thoughts kept me up at night. But these all vanished when I ran into Robert at a coffee shop on a random Wednesdays. He looked different, lighter somehow, like he'd shed a weight he'd been carrying for decades. He spotted me and came over to my table. "I owe you an apology," he said, settling into the chair across from me. "I should have said something that night at dinner. I knew what they were doing wasn't right." I shrugged. "You were in a tough spot." "For 35 years," he said with a sad smile, "but not anymore." He told me he'd moved into a small apartment, bought a motorcycle, and was dating a kindergarten teacher he met at a community center art class. "Patricia hates her," he said with a chuckle. "Says she's too simple, whatever that means. But she lets me talk, actually asks what I think. It's—" He paused, searching for the word. "It's peaceful." He leaned forward, with this look like he was about to share state secrets. "When Patricia got served, she showed up in my place at midnight, banging on the door, screaming that I owed her for wasting her life with me, called the cops claiming my car was stolen, my car that I paid for. When they showed up, she tried telling them I was mentally unstable and needed to be committed. Then she started rattling off everything she'd supposedly given me over the years, like our marriage was some transaction where I defaulted on payments. And the worst part, Victoria was right there, backing her up, telling the cops I'd always been unstable. My own kid, man." He shook his head, genuine sadness crossing his face despite everything. "Anyway," he said, "enough of that depressing crap. How are you holding up?" We chatted for a while about nothing important. It was actually nice to see him coming back to life. As we were about to part ways, he gripped my arm firmly. "Listen, Travis, I need you to know something. You didn't just dodge a bullet, you dodged a nuclear missile. What they tried to do to you." He shook his head. "It would have destroyed you piece by piece until you didn't recognize yourself anymore. I know because that's what happened to me." He looked me straight in the eyes. "Don't ever doubt that you made the right call, no matter what anyone says. Some people are just toxic, and you can't save them. You can only save yourself." It was a relief to hear these words. As for Victoria, she still posts these fake deep Instagram quotes about knowing your worth and not settling. Meanwhile, Patricia's still running her mouth to anyone who will listen, calling me a financial abuser of all things. The projection is so obvious, it's almost funny, like being called fat by a sumo wrestler. I heard through the grapevine that she tried to start another business, a wellness coaching thing that's basically just repackaged Instagram advice. It's not going well. Her boss's son is long gone, dating some yoga instructor now. According to mutual friends, Victoria's been trying to paint herself as the victim in all this, claiming I led her on for years, only to abandon her when commitment became real. The last I heard, she'd actually had the nerve to take her story to our local Facebook community group, asking for support during her healing journey after being financially abused by her ex. The comment section quickly filled with people who knew both of us, calling her out with receipts. The post disappeared within hours. Me, I'm doing better than ever. That prenup was the best thing that ever happened to me. Showed me exactly who she was before I made the biggest mistake of my life. And by the way, I took some of that 28 $100 and went to Costa Rica for a month. Volcano hiking, beach days, food that'll melt your face off. Best decision I ever made, gave me perspective. Started dating again more carefully this time. No family introductions till I really know someone now. Sometimes the red flags are hidden until they're waving right in your face. When that happens, don't ignore them.